A good ending is always important. No matter how good a show is when it's running, if you mess up the ending, you will anger almost every viewer that was rooting for you. Look at Game of Thrones for example. The ending is a textbook example of how not to end a show. And the result of that ending is that no one talks about it anymore. Well, unless it's to make fun of it or to share some memes. Unfortunately, in mangas, good endings are not often found. I've already talked about good animes that had brilliant endings, but today we will look at the other side of things and try to understand why some series had everything set for a perfect ending but ended up failing miserably. It is very common in Japanese animation, and we will see that it's much more complicated than we think. The pressure from editors destroys good endings. I know, I'm not telling you anything new, but being a manga author is tough. A week to script, storyboard, cut, draw, and color 19 pages is very short. In these conditions, it's not uncommon for a mangaka to lose quality over the weeks, especially for a story that runs for years. The authors never get time to come up for air, and eventually, well, everything deflates. We saw this with Bleach and Naruto. If their endings are highly criticized, it's partly because of errors, inconsistencies, and even a betrayal of the discourse that built the work over the years. Naruto, for example, is portrayed as a boy rejected by everyone, who has to build himself alone, dreaming of becoming the Hokage and overcoming social barriers. We learn a few chapters before the end that from the beginning, he was the chosen one, and the reincarnation of a demigod. 15 years of a greatly written narrative abandoned suddenly by Kishimoto, who seemed to struggle more and more to finish his manga. One might say that it's the author's fault, that they stretched it too much and should have ended their manga sooner. Yes, but no, not really. It's not them who decide, it's the editors. This is the theme of the last arc of Bakuman, a manga that depicts the daily lives of two mangakas, Mashiro and Takagi. The heroes plan to end their manga, but their editors ask them to artificially extend the story until the anime adaptation is broadcast. Through the story of this arc, the two must fight to get the ending they want. The editorial head and the production team are not fans of the idea of producing an anime when the manga is already finished, because it would be bad for the audience not to capitalize on a booming license. I'm talking about this in detail because it's not absurd to think that some series have faced intense pressure to continue because of the anime. Or even worse, they pressure their employees past their breakpoint. MAPPA is the perfect example with the year they had in 2023. I won't go too much into details as I have a full video planned for this, so make sure to subscribe to be notified when it comes out. All of this leads to the ultimate problem: mangakas being unable to write their ending due to the limits of their bodies. An example is Yoshihiro Togashi, who can't write Hunter x Hunter anymore due to severe back pain. Add to that the burnout following Yu Yu Hakusho, and you'll understand why he struggles with the weekly release rhythm of Shonen Jump. It's sad because it shows how immense the pressure on authors is, even to the point of destroying some. This is a great fear among One Piece fans. Everyone fears that Ichiro Oda won't finish his manga, or that something might happen to him, and he can never finish his work. Mangas that never manage to have an ending are a trademark for the industry, and often mangas end badly. Imagine reading a manga, investing time and love, but you'll never get to the end of the story. In the world of publishing, it's more frequent than you think. It happened to Food Wars, Hunter x Hunter, or even Vagabond, 3 excellent mangas that couldn't have a proper ending. If you're not at the top of the food chain, you'll be suffocated by the editors. It's a bit of a saying in the industry. The problem is that when the announcement of the end comes, the magazine often allows only 4 or 5 chapters to conclude the story at most. Needless to say, it's too little to conclude a story. In these cases, authors often opt for a falsely open ending, which can be summarized as "they lived happily ever after." In the case of anime, too often it's the production that abandons the project halfway, forcing teams to work with reduced means. This happened with Evangelion and Gundam, where Gainax and Sunrise faced financial difficulties. Gainax is known for animes that have completely bizarre endings, like Neon Genesis Evangelion and Gunbuster, which leaves us on a frustrating cliffhanger, teasing a season 2 that will never come. But they don't intentionally sabotage fans. It's entirely possible to adapt and achieve excellent results. For example, Erased initially had 12 episodes scheduled to be aired between June and August 2015. Due to various delays in production, Bones, the animation studio behind the series, decided to delay the release of the 12th episode and make a big 40-minute finale that beautifully concluded the series. However, they unexpectedly made a season 2 2 years later. In other words, it's not that mangakas can't write good endings. When you think about it, One Piece, Naruto, Dragon Ball, Detective Conan, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure are all pillars of the genre that were running for years, even decades. It's normal because the manga industry has long favored ongoing publications. By definition, mangas with ongoing publications do everything to delay their end. The ending is not conceived as a logical conclusion, but more as a publication stop. That's why manga stories are designed to continue indefinitely, introducing protagonists with vague objectives. The whole I want to be a Hokage thing from Naruto isn't something that's resolved in a few chapters. It requires a significant amount of narrative arcs to progress the character. This is something far less prevalent in mediums like cinema, which are built in shorter formats. In a movie, there's just an hour or an hour and a half to develop a story, so the hero's quest is accounted for, and therefore the ending is worked on from the beginning. This is also often found in Western comics, like in Asterix volumes or Tintin series, where the means of production is fundamentally different. Here, it's not produced chapter by chapter, but volume by volume, and sometimes even a complete series at a time. In the manga industry, the beginning takes precedent over everything else. Having an effective start is crucial to retain the audience's attention and encourage them to follow the work week after week. The problem also stems from the fact that since mangas are designed to never end, sometimes it's just the concept of the story that makes writing an ending very difficult. For instance, harem stories often struggle to conclude because conventions dictate that the hero ends up with only one girl in the end, creating frustration for some of the audience who want to see the character evolve amidst several girls. And sometimes, the author objectively makes the worst choice for their character, like pairing the hero with the least developed girl in the entire story. And still, these anime do have an ending. An anime adapting a manga or a light novel often intended to conclude at the end of an arc rather than the story's conclusion. This leaves an open door to more content later down the line, which essentially means more money. This type of cliffhanger exists because anime is primarily a promotional tool for the original work, the manga. It's part of what's called the media mix, creating not just one work, but a network of works across different media centered around a single license. The anime isn't produced independently. Its main purpose is to promote its license. Therefore, it's not a big deal if they don't finish, as long as the beginning is effective and popular. It will have done its job of promotion. This reminds me that many anime are ultimately just billboards for their manga. And frankly, that's quite sad. Sometimes, to offer a semblance of an ending, an anime might even invent its own. For instance, Tokyo Ghoul completely changed the scenario of the story in the anime. It doesn't follow the manga after the first arc and just goes full-on stupid mode, doing whatever it wanted. And Soul Eater changed the story 5 episodes before the end. Yes, I said 5 episodes before the end, which is crazy. It felt so forced and out of nowhere that it disinterested many fans from the original manga. These situations rarely lead to good endings, because the story needs to be consistent or else people lose interest. However, there are some excellent counterexamples, like in Fullmetal Alchemist. Arakawa, the author, quickly altered her story to avoid catching up with the manga. And since the change was initiated early, the first adaptation of FMA provided a good, coherent ending without spoiling the manga's plot. So how can mangakas succeed in their endings? First, attention could be shifted to shorter series or one-shots that have a different narrative structure, more condensed into a single story. This would enable the author to have a better chance of being coherent. Creating shorter series also means authors can write more, thus practicing their endings more. Second, we could also highlight the poor working conditions of mangakas, who are constantly under pressure and whose lifespan in the profession is never guaranteed. Third, as seen in the case of the author of Akame ga Kill, authors could also consider fans' feedback on the manga's ending to refine the anime's ending. And fourth, authors should give more importance to their writing in manga and anime. We often focus on the visual side of the works, and we tend to romanticize the myth of the mangaka who writes and draws their story entirely alone, which is actually very strenuous for creators. A solution would be to give more credit to authors and scriptwriters in Japanese manga and animation, particularly by highlighting individuals like Mari Okada, whose stories truly reflect the author's vision. It's true that as anime and manga fans, we're constantly seeking to discover new works, knowing full well that they might never have a proper ending, or if they do, it might not often be a good one. The end cements the work in time and makes it unforgettable. A good ending often mitigates many of the story's flaws because it's what we remember. It's what marks and conditions our opinion of the manga. That was it for this video. If you enjoyed it and would like to see more, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching and see you on the next one.